Good morning, everybody. Okay, let's see. Nope, that's good. Right. Okay. Morning, everybody. Welcome on in. So we're what in the 15-week stats class. Moving along. So we're progressing with things. So a few things to talk about. Just want to stress because there's still some people getting used to how this works. You have to watch the videos. You have to do the lessons that are over here in Canvas, right? Make sure you're doing the lessons and the assessments. You have to do both of those. And they're weighted a little bit differently, so make sure you're getting both of those sets of points so that you're doing those. That's where you're actually going to learn a lot of the material. I don't have time to cover all the stuff in class. I'm filling in the stuff that I think you're more likely to miss or that you need on top of these videos in order to get things done and progressing. So where we are is yesterday, your survey questions were due October 5th. So a bunch of you got them in. Good job. What is like the number one thing on my to-do list today is to create the survey from your survey questions. Okay, so hopefully today, maybe even I'll get it posted so that a survey will show up, and it will be. So if you look at the end of chapter 2 here, you're going through chapter 2. Hopefully you're working through that now because the homework's due in a few days, and it's due before I see you again. If you go down here, see how I haven't published this yet, so you can't see this because see, it's not a green check over here. It's like a, whatever they call that, a buster sign or whatever. So, the circle with a line through it. So, what'll happen is when I get the survey up, I will release it. So this will have a green check. That means it'll show up at the end of your chapter 2. So then hopefully, if this all goes well, later today, when you scroll down to the end of this, there'll be a link in here. So you click, okay, take the survey, and then you'll come in. I'll have to update these dates, obviously, because that's left over from the summer, but I'll update this, and there'll be a link in here that will take you to StatCrunch to take the survey. Okay, so you need to go in and take the survey. So I'm going to give, I guess, about a week to take the survey. But here's what I'm going to say. Please try to get it done. There is, at least not that I've been able to find, there is not a way that I can give you points for taking the survey. And especially, I try not to, there are certain ways you could do it if you really wanted to work hard. But I try not to because what I want to make sure is that people are free to answer the survey questions honestly, right? I don't want someone to be afraid to answer certain questions because they might face discrimination or they're afraid that they might get some kind of pushback from other people that don't agree with who they are or something like that. So I want to make sure that this is anonymous so that people will actually feel free to take the survey in an honest way, right? And then put down the answers that truly reflect them and not feel like, well, then now people in the class are going to, not like something that I said here or something. So it's much better that we be open, inclusive, and allow people to feel safe taking the survey. So the problem is traditionally, this is one of the hardest things to get students to do in the class is to actually take the survey, right? Because there's kind of an attitude, I think, of, well, if I'm not getting points for it, what's the big deal? Well, the big deal is you all need to have the survey taken. You're like everyone in this class is doing a project, and to do that you need data, and you can't get the data unless everyone takes the survey. So it's kind of that whole you're all in this together, and there's we've all seen the problems from Prisoner's Dilemma from game theory and stuff like that. Like you can try to go, well, it's if I just skip it, there'll still be and everyone else takes it, we'll still have enough data points. But that's kind of not how it works. We really need you're all in the same boat. You all want enough data so that the project is a little smoother and easier. The reality is the more data points we get, the easier it's going to be for you to make your graphs, the easier it's going to be for you to make your conclusions and to apply the tools that we see in this class. If everybody in the class, and I think as of this morning, I believe we have 38 people in the class. If we could get 38 people to take the survey, that's kind of like the bottom. That's like it'll work, but we really would prefer to have like 50 or 80 people taking the survey. But we can't do that because we don't have that many people in the class. So basically, as we drop below 38, every person we lose that doesn't take the survey, your data is going to look that much rougher. It's going to be that much harder to apply the tools to. So it's one of those situations where you kind of have to go, yeah, I'm not getting points for this, but it's 10 minutes and it's actually going to benefit me if I take the survey, because that's one more set of data points and everyone in the entire class benefits. So it doesn't directly lead to points where I'm going to like grade, here's 10 points because you took the survey, but just be a good person, be a good fellow human, right? We all live in a society together. We all live in cities together. Hopefully you can just sort of be a good person, because for the sake of the fact that other people in the class, most of them are also being a good person. So, doesn't that make you kind of want to rise to the occasion and go, oh, look at all these people doing the right thing. I'm going to do the right thing too. So it's really in everyone's best interest if we can get that survey taken, and the sooner the better. Because then I can release the results to you, and then you can actually start doing the work for your project, right, along the way. These pieces that are actually after each chapter, and they come up starting soon. At the end of chapter 3, which we're kind of going to start talking about today, you've already got 2 things at the end of chapter 3 that you'll start doing the work for your project. But notice this one is project visuals. That's actually chapter 2 stuff, right, from up here. So why don't I have that at the end of chapter 2? Because you haven't taken the survey yet and you don't have your data. So you see how there's like a progression here? So we're at like a tricky point in the semester, which is everyone has their questions in as of yesterday, or hopefully you did, otherwise you kind of missed out. I will try to get the survey out today. Hopefully I can release the survey in a week, and then you can have your data, and then you already know how to do chapter 2 because that's due in a few days. You can go down right away and you can do the project visuals. That is, you can make your histograms and your dot plots and your box plots, and if you want to make a pie chart and throw it, you can go through and start putting all that stuff together, and then it's all ready for you at the end of the semester. What I recommend is posting your work in here, but then also like save stuff in a folder. Just put a folder on your desktop that's, call it whatever you want, statistics, final project. And then whenever you make something, a visual or a summary, or, just save it and save a version into that folder. And then at the end of the semester, you've got all your work done and it's all created and ready to go. All you have to do is put it in a video at that point. So a little bit of organization now will reduce your stress a lot in the final 2 weeks of the class. Okay, so sometimes what happens, I'd say about half the time, I say, okay, class, let's get that survey taken in the next week. And what'll happen is I'll come back, a week from today, Wednesday, and 25 people have taken it. I can't release that's just not enough. That's not enough data points. So then I have to extend it and go, okay, we really need people to try to take it by Tuesday, and then we'll get like 2 more people. And then okay, we really need more, and then we'll get like 3 more people. So now it's taken an extra week before I can release the results. So in other words, if you're one of the people that doesn't go in and take the survey in the next week, you're actually holding up the entire class, right? You're holding the whole class back from being able to start their work because there just isn't enough data points. So please just go, you know what, I'm going to be magnanimous, and I'm going to go in and I'm just going to take that thing. Even if I'm not getting points for it, it's the right thing to do, because that would be great if by Wednesday, or even if everyone took it by Tuesday, then I could release the results on Tuesday, or Monday, I guess. But if everyone gets it done by Wednesday, I can release this and you can all start doing the work that you won't have to do at the end of the semester for the project. Okay, so it's kind of helpful. Right. So let's see. I had something I was going to say and then I got a little bit sidetracked. So, there's still people in the other class, the full term class, still confused about stuff. I want you to notice, right, the first line of the directions of every one of these discussions Each group member needs to post to receive credit. The way the grading works is it shows me a student's posts. And I look at those posts and go, okay, you did a good job, 10 points. Then I go to the next student's posts. Did you do a good job? Yep. Okay, here's your points. And it goes like that. If you don't leave a post, you don't get credit because I'll never see. There's nothing there that I'll see, right? So a lot of times students say, oh, no, it's okay because this other person said I'm in her group. It doesn't. That's not the directions, right? The directions clearly say each group member needs to leave a post to receive credit or leave a comment, right? And that's a meaningful comment. Remember, not like, hey, good job or something. Like you have to put something that's relevant up there in order to do that. So each group member needs to post to receive credit. I get emails about why didn't Sarah said I'm in her group? Why didn't I get credit? Because that's not what the assignment was, right? The assignment is not that one person does all the work and then 3 people get credit. Remember, you're each doing your own project, but you're in groups to help each other through this and walk each other through and share what you have figured out with the other people in your group to make this easier. You are not doing one group project. You're each doing your own, which is why each group member needs to post to receive credit. Like that's, I know I'm repeating it a lot, but it's a question that comes up repeatedly. So, and I'll start showing you how to do some of this stuff in StatCrunch today because StatCrunch is fantastic. Let me tell you, even we kind of started using this about 5 years ago, but like 10 years ago, stats was a lot more number crunching, and now it's a lot more understanding, which is actually nice, right? Like who wants to sit there and calculate a regression line by hand? No one, right? Not too many people. So you can spend more time on the interesting parts, okay? But that's your goal. Unless something really weird happens, I should be able to have that survey out today. You can start taking it, and the higher that number gets, the sooner I can get you your stuff, and the sooner the class is not being held back from working on their project, okay? So that forward with that. And I'm not seeing any questions. If there's questions, feel free to ask, right? And just make sure you're getting things done by these due dates so that you're getting them done on time. And here's an example. I kind of found this. So, this is a histogram, and it's roughly normal, right? It's roughly bell-shaped and symmetric, but it has a lot of data points. The N, right? The size of the sample size for this is very, very large. And you can see how you can really see, oh yeah, there's a bell shape. And like we mentioned, you're never going to get a perfectly symmetric bell, right? I mean, I say never, but like 99.99999% of the time, you're never going to get a perfect bell if you're dealing with something that's actually a large data set. So, we're a little bit lenient with that, but you can kind of say, yeah, this is definitely a bell shape considering that the large number of data we have, and it's roughly symmetric. We get down here, see how it's subtle, but you can say, yeah, this is skewed. It looks like someone pushed it over to this side. The steepness over here doesn't match this one. All that kind of work is harder to do the fewer data points you have, so the smaller n. So, it's going to be easier if you're looking at something like this and trying to analyze it in your project versus something like this, right? You could go, yeah, that's kind of bell-shaped, but since the n is so low, it's kind of unreliable. I mean, a person could definitely make a case to say, I don't know, that's pretty rough. I don't think that's normal. I don't think that's close enough to being a normal graph, right? Here in the book, they say it's roughly normal. That's where things start to get a little sketchy. Certain tools we use in this class are pretty loose about how normal your data is, and some of them are a little more strict, and it has to be really normal. So then you would run into a situation like this where you're like, I don't know, is that close enough to being normal? Is it valid to use this tool? And there's not like an easy cutoff to know, right? So this is the kind of thing you're more likely to run across if a low number of you actually take the survey. That's why I have to wait until we get like everyone taking the survey, because then your data is going to look more like this, which is a lot simpler, easier, and faster to analyze. So in other words, each one of you that takes the survey, you're making the project easier and really more informative for the whole class. So please just sort of count that as your duty as a student and go in there and be a good person and help out all the other students in the class as they are helping you out when they take the survey, right? It's kind of like the mask situation right now. When you wear a mask, you're actually protecting everyone else, right? My mask protects you. Your mask protects me. It's really about protecting other people, right? It's the same thing here. You take the survey, helps everyone else in the class. They take the survey, helps you. So, try to go through and do that. Okay, so that's why it's important we get everyone to take that. Okay, where was I going to go with things? Oh, right. So kind of introduction to StatCrunch a little bit. I think I showed you a little bit on StatCrunch, but not too much. So StatCrunch is really helpful. You'll start seeing it pop up more in your homework. I think probably you've probably seen a little bit of it in here, but you'll see more of it, I think, as we get into chapter 3 and on. You're going to see more of your homework problems have a little icon in them that allows you to get into StatCrunch. So let's take a, I think this one will do it. If I go in here, and it's going to say, okay, load lesson in a new window, and you click it, and you go in here. Oh, actually, this was the lesson. Maybe I want was this the assignment? Sure, let's start the assignment. Oh, yeah, I think I did the wrong thing here. I don't want the lesson, I want the assessment. This is what I want. That one doesn't have it. Let's see. Why don't I try? I forget which question it was that has what I'm looking for. Let's try 7. Okay, here we go. So we've got this question here. Let's see if I can make this a better size for looking at this. Okay, the accompanying data represents the weight in grams. Notice how whenever they tell you what it is you're measuring and they give you the unit, you should be doing that every time in statistics. You give the thing you care about. You also give the unit that goes along with it. Okay, weight in grams. Of a simple random sample of 50 candies, determine the shape of the distribution of weights of the candies by drawing a frequency histogram. Find the mean and median. Which measure of central tendency best describes the weight of the candy? Now, you might not understand everything that's going on in there. That's part of chapter 3, so I'm getting slightly ahead of us, but hopefully most of you are sort of on the verge of wrapping up chapter 2 and getting ready to get into chapter 3. Back to the thing about the weights and the units. Just be aware when I'm writing up the survey, I might slightly change the wording of some of your questions because I go, oh, if they ask it this way, it's going to be a problem. So I might try to wordsmith some of your questions just so that your stuff comes out a little bit better. And so I'll kind of keep referring to that because since that's the next big step everyone needs to do, which is take the survey, I'll be referring back to that throughout the discussion today. But what I want to show you, see over here, we've got this. Click the icon to view the weights of the candy. Basically, what they're saying is you get the data set. So notice if I click that, now all of a sudden I have the data set. Well, that's helpful. Now I have the data that we're looking at, but this isn't really a very handy way to use the data, right? So notice this little blue box right here. This is great. This is awesome. Some problems you can't even do by hand from the information that's given, and just allowing StatCrunch to do the work for you is really nice. So let me click this, and it says, do you want to open in StatCrunch? And you go, yeah, sure. I'll open this up in StatCrunch. Oops, it opened in a different window for me. And here you go. You have a StatCrunch window that has all the weights, right, available to you. Now, this is awesome because now we can use the StatCrunch tools to do a lot of the work for us. Okay, so you want to get comfortable with this, and I forget myself where stuff is sometimes, and I go, wait, where's the thing I'm looking for? Because a lot of these things are very similar, and you're like this morning, I was going to make a scatter plot, but I wanted the correlation in there, and I was like, wait, where is it? And I had to kind of remember, oh, yeah, it's over here in regression simple linear. So it's very easy to forget where stuff is, but it's really easy to figure it out. StatCrunch is being used around the country which means there are lots of people making videos and websites on how to use StatCrunch. Right? It's a very common tool that's being used in statistics classes now. It's used by actual statisticians as well, but it's being used in stats classes. So there's lots of things pointing you to how to figure stuff out. So for instance, if you're trying to make a regression or like a line of best fit in StatCrunch, if you just Google StatCrunch correlation, there's going to be, one of the top results is going to be a YouTube video that explains exactly how to do that thing. Right, so some students kind of get confused and they're like, well, oh man, I'm going to wait till Tuesday to go to Dr. Frederick's office hours and ask him how to do this thing in StatCrunch, which is fine. I'm totally happy to help you figure out how to use StatCrunch, but just be aware, you don't have to wait. There's so much information online about which buttons to push in StatCrunch. Just Google it. Right? And it'll come up and then you'll look at it and go, oh, I mean, that's literally what I do. When I forget where something is and I'm like, where's the thing I'm trying to do? I just Google StatCrunch and then the name of the statistic that I'm trying to look up. And then there's like a 3-minute video that shows me how to do it. And I go, that's right. That's where it is. Okay. So don't be afraid to do that. It's helpful and informative, right? To go through and do that stuff. So for instance, say we want to make a histogram out of the stuff we just looked at, right? So this is like what you'll be doing in that one part of the project once we have the data and you start making your visuals. That's what you're going to do is you're going to come in here and here's what I suggest. It's so easy to make these charts. Don't just go with your first one. Like don't go with the default. Just try to make like 3, 4, 5 of these things. It'll take you a minute, less than a minute to make 5 histograms. And then you can pick the one you like the most, right? So for instance, let's take a look. Let me choose histogram. And it gives me some choices here. Well, I have to choose my column because that's my data. When you get your data back from the survey, everything's going to be in columns. And you have to figure out which column's the one that corresponds to your question. And it's not very hard to do, but I'll show you how to do that. But you click a column and say, okay, I want candy weights. And then you have these different options, right? So under type, you've got frequency, relative frequency. Well, you just check back. Which one did they ask me to do in the problem? I don't remember, right? So you can go back and look. I believe it was frequency. You come down here, your bins. You have the options for your bins. So you have the option where to start your bins and the width. Remember, the bins are the groupings. Each bar in your histogram is a bin. So that is, do you want to put, like say we were doing ages. Okay, well, there's lots of natural ways that we could do ages, right? You could do age by year. So you could literally see every single year. How many people do we have that are 30? How many people that are 31? How many people that are 32? Now, for our class, that's probably a little harder because our sample size is so small. If you had a sample size of 10,000 people, then you could do it by year and it would be just fine. We're probably going to get a weird looking bin if we were to do that. So you could change the widths. You could make it 30 to 34, 35 to 40, no, 35 to 39, 40 to 44, 45 to 49. And you could make your bins that way. You could go by decade, 20 to 29, 30 to 39, 40 to 49. There's different ways of doing it. Your histogram's going to look a little bit different with each of those. So just make like 3 or 4 or 5 versions of it by messing around with these options. Make your graphs and go, ooh, this one is the one that tells the best story. Remember, what we're doing when we do statistics is we're trying to create a narrative. We're trying to create a story about our data that we can convince people of. It's almost like an argument, right? That's kind of how I think about a lot of times about math and statistics. Is almost like I'm like a lawyer. I'm building a case, right? I'm putting forth evidence and a story that says, this is what the data is telling me, and here's the evidence I came up with using statistical tools that support my view that this is what's going on with the data, right? And then we use visuals and hypothesis tests and confidence intervals and all the stuff we're going to learn the rest of the course. We use that as evidence to support the narrative that we are trying to talk about for statistics, right? So it might be that we're trying to make the case that in school, it should be mandatory that every student has an hour of exercise on campus a day, because what we've found is that if students don't get an hour of exercise a day, then obesity rates start to rise, right? That's a narrative that we're trying to convince people of. If, say, we're on the school board or something like that, or we're a principal, and we're trying to make that case, it's really important that all of our students get an hour of exercise a day, because otherwise we start to see health problems. Well, that's fine that you can make that narrative, but you really need evidence. And that's what all these statistical tools do, is we're building evidence to support the narrative about the point we're trying to make about our data. And if you're just going with the default, whatever StatCrunch spits out, you're probably not looking at your best evidence. You're probably not looking at the version that is the most convincing of your evidence. So, mess around with the bin width, mess around with your starting point. Shouldn't make too much difference, but mess around, that's kind of just to make it look nice usually. It can make a difference, but your bin width is probably more important. I shouldn't even say that. Start at is important. Like if you wanted to start at 30 and then go to 34, then you can say where that should start. But you go through, you make your stuff. Labels, I can tell you, every single graph in this class that you are going to have someone else see should be fully labeled. There should be an x-axis, a y-axis, and a title. It should include what you measured, and it should include the units. Okay, if you don't, that's a big one that I look at when if I'm watching a video, a project at the end of the semester, and someone shows me a graph that isn't well labeled, that's immediately that's going to be some points. You're going to get marked down for that, because there's just no reason. The goal behind when you show someone a visual, like say you create a histogram and you hand it to someone, they should not have any questions about what your histogram means. It should be fully self-explanatory and say, this is what this histogram is measuring. This is the units that we used, right? They shouldn't have to come back and go, oh, you're showing me a scatter plot with a line of regression on it, but what did you measure? If someone has to, well, it says height, but what is the height? Is that inches? Is that feet? What did you measure? If someone has to ask you the question, that means your graph is bad, right? If it's self-explanatory because you filled in all the labels appropriately, then you're probably good to go. Oh. Sorry, there's some cats fighting outside my window apparently. Okay, so then once you get things set, you just come down, you hit compute, boom, that fast gives you your data. That looks pretty symmetric, right? A little hard to tell if I guess that's kind of bell-shaped. Yeah, right? But there you've got your histogram right there. See how fast that was? So it's super easy to go in, and if you want to change it, you just go into options, edit, and go, actually I want to change what my width was. Where was that? Up here. So let's look. What is it now? 0.15. Okay, so let's change that a little bit. Let's say I want this to be, maybe I want my bin width to be 0.05. And now I hit compute. Now I have a different looking histogram, right? This may support my data better. It may not, right? This is a little harder to convince that this is a normal graph than the one we were looking at. So play around, find the ones that support what you, and I'm not saying be dishonest, right? But what I'm saying is a little bit of playing around and you find a visualization that shows what you want to show. That's what statisticians do. You're basically, think of it like being a lawyer. You're building a case for the point you're trying to make, right? And of course you're being ethical. You're not trying to mislead people or anything like that. Sometimes lawyers do stuff like that, but you're trying to, do it in an ethical way, and you can change those around a little bit. Okay, and all the other graphs we've looked at, you've got bar plots, which are for, people mix up histograms and bar plots. Bar plots are for qualitative data. Histograms are for quantitative data, right? You can make a pie chart if you want. You've got stem and leaf, box plot, dot plot, scatter plots we'll be doing later in the class, all sorts of stuff. So any of those that you think fit what you're doing, we can come back and include those. Okay, you'll be doing that hopefully in a week, but maybe a few weeks, depending on when we can get everyone to take the survey. So go and play around with that. It's super fast and easy. So just look at the options, right? Don't just always go with the generic histogram, because StatCrunch doesn't know what you're trying to do. All it knows is it has some features, and when it says make a histogram, it makes a histogram. But you are the smart human who's sort of driving the bus, and you tell it, oh, I think I want the bins a little bigger, or I want the bins a little smaller, or whatever, right? If you're not doing that, you're probably going to have some really generic looking stuff that doesn't really make your point, right? Not necessarily. I guess it's possible the default could be a home run, but rarely. Usually it takes a little bit of fine tuning to really get a good histogram or box plot or whatever, right? Here's your box plot, right? Got a box plot right there. And you can do multiple box plots and all sorts of stuff. What we'll be getting to in Chapter 3, which some of you probably won't be starting for a few days, but I'm not seeing many questions on Chapter 2, and Chapter 3 gets a little bit deeper, so I figure it's probably time to move into that. There's a lot of basic stats we're going to be looking at, and there are some stats that you're going to calculate every single time that you analyze a problem. We'll go into more in depth with these, but the big ones: median, mean, and standard deviation. There's never a time where you should be like, oh, I just didn't get around to calculating the median. I didn't think it mattered. Or, yeah, I didn't worry about the mean on this one. Mean, median, standard deviation. If you haven't examined those three things for your data, then you basically haven't even started, right? That's like the starting point that starts to inform us, that really gets us to start to understand our data, that then sends us down the roads where we go, oh, I think maybe my data is skewed left. Let me try to figure out why my data is skewed left. Oh, I think I'm starting to understand it. The road always starts with mean, median, and standard deviation. So where do you get those from? It's in these summary stats. So from stats, you're going to go down to summary stats, go over to columns, pick your candy weights, compute. Here we go. Look, I've got my mean, my variance, my standard deviation. I've got all these values. We've got a bunch of other stuff too, right? Quartiles, max, mins. We're going to talk about all that stuff in Chapter 3. We won't get to it all today, but that summary stats right out of the gate gives you a bunch of important information that you should be calculating for every single data set that you do, at least assuming it's quantitative, right? You're not going to have a mean on qualitative data. You're not going to have a median on qualitative data, but for quantitative data, you should calculate these every single time. Okay, and then you can make your graphs and stuff. So make use of that. I definitely see students who get confused about how to get to StatCrunch. So first you click this to get your data. Then you click the blue square over there to get your data imported into StatCrunch, and then you can do it that way. Okay, and then you answer your question and move on. With StatCrunch here, this is important because, and this is one of the ways that I'll probably have to edit a few of the questions that are in there, is you want to make sure, and a lot of people did this. I saw many students came to me wanting feedback on their questions, and some people I just helped them with a little bit and said, yeah, this is a pretty good start, but what if we change this question here? And we sort of, I've been doing this a long time, so I can kind of predict a little bit better how students are going to answer stuff. You're all brand new at this, so there's nothing wrong with the fact that your questions needed a little bit of work. Some people's questions were good right out of the gate, but you want to think about, and also when you're answering the question, think about what kind of answer does the person probably want you to give. Because here's an example of what we see, right? Because my other class, my stats class that was the full 18 weeks, they're analyzing their data now. They're sort of getting into that and starting to analyze things. And so people are looking at their data and they're seeing things like this. Well, notice what happens here. Let me show you. If I go in and do my summary stats on my columns and I pick shoe size, and notice how I put the full data, shoe size in US measurements, because it's different in the UK, it's different in Europe, it's different in different parts of the world. Shoe sizes are measured differently, so I'm saying, nope, we did the shoe size and these are US sizes. So that way when someone looks at it, they're not confused like, wait, what are you talking about? Are you talking about like some kind of shoe in South America? Or what are we talking about? Nope, US sizes right there, okay? So we compute, it gives me my summary stats. Notice what this n is. Lowercase n in statistics is always your sample size. It's how many data points there are in your data that you're looking at. See how it says 20 right there? And we can see if we go down here and look, yep, 20. That's how many we have, right? There's no below that. Okay, but watch if I do this on, don't want that. Watch if I do the summary stats on my other column, which is height. And you can go in and you can change these. See how these are highlighted? So that's the main ones it's giving. If you want the other stuff, you can get that. Sometimes you'll get questions where they talk, I won't even bring that up yet. That's the next week, or yeah, next week we'll talk about it. So never mind. I don't want to confuse anybody right now. So I hit compute, it comes up. Notice how it's saying my N is 19. Why is it doing that? Well, look at my data. I've got a bunch of numbers, and then I've got a thing that is not a number. And the person wasn't trying to do anything wrong. They just put the unit on there, right? I say the unit's important, but StatCrunch is going to ignore this because it says, I don't know how to put a word into the calculations that I'm trying to do here. So it throws this out, and it doesn't count this data right here. Well, you want all your data counted. So one of the things you're going to have to do when your data comes back is you're going to have to go through and fix things like this. You're going to have to get to a column and go, oh, 71 inches should just be 71. And now when I look that up in stats and I go summary stats columns, height, compute, notice how now it says my N is 20 because now it knows what to do with that last data point. In other words, you're all going to have to kind of massage your, they call it like the frame, they use the phrase massaging the data. That is trying to get everything so that the calculator can calculate things correctly, basically. So you're getting it all right. Now it calculates it. Now, the less of that fixing you have to do, the better. So what you probably want when you ask people, what is the height in inches, if you've made it clear in the question that the unit is inches, then people won't feel the need to write inches in here. Some will, just because they're trying to be, complete, but it actually kind of holds things up. So that's why we want to be clear. What is the height in inches? And then people just give a number, and then you have this data that's like totally ready to go. This is totally ready to be analyzed, right? That's why you don't just want to ask, what's your height? Because you'll get a third of people that write 5, the word foot, and then 8, and then inches. You'll have a third of the people that write 5, a dash, 8, and then a double dash. All right, that's one way of writing foot inches. You'll have some people that give the number in inches. You'll have some people that write the number and then the word inches. That's a lot of work you're going to have to go back and redo. So just think about that when you're answering the questions. Think about, what is the way the person would probably want me to answer this? They probably want me to write 71, not 71 inches. That's assuming the question was a good question that was asked correctly. Okay. And then we'll be getting to, in a future chapter, we'll be getting into things where we can take 2 columns and consider 2 columns at once. So this is a regression. We haven't talked about regressions yet, but we will shortly. We can go in. We can pick how we want this done. Let's say we compute it. It's going to give us 2 things. One, it gives us a whole bunch of information about our correlation, which we don't understand yet. We'll talk about that soon. But when I go over, look, it even makes a nice graph for me. I've got my data, and I've got my linear regression going right through here. Helpful. That's helpful, right? This is the kind of thing that you'll probably want. You should have at least one of these in a project. It's okay if you're confused because we haven't talked about these yet, but I'm just kind of showing you how to get around in StatCrunch and how easy it is to have it calculate this stuff for you. You just have to know what buttons to push. And like I said, it's real easy to just Google it and go, I'm trying to do a dot plot in StatCrunch, and someone's going to go, well, okay, so go to graph, go down to dot plot, and then they're going to tell you how to use the different options in here to get it to look like you want, right? Label your axes and point size. Maybe instead of 2, you make it 1 or whatever it is you want to do to change that around. And then we've got a dot plot, right? Just that fast. And you go, oh, I don't like it as 2. Let's change that. Let's go back. Or I don't like it as 1. Let's change it back to 2. See what that looks like. Yeah, okay, that's still good. I like that. Or no, I like it the first way. So you can just bounce back and forth real easy, changing the parameters until you get one that you think is supportive of the narrative that you're putting together for your data. Okay, so see how it's quite easy to get around in StatCrunch. I know it seems totally weird at first. You just see it's a big grid that you see like in Excel or Google Sheets or something like that. But once you get in here and start using the information, it's really nice. It's really, really helpful. And like you're seeing that it's only taking me a few seconds to make these graphs, right? The tricky part is that as of yet, you don't know what buttons to push. But that's what I'm saying is that's pretty easy. Once you learn which buttons to push, boom, it just makes the stuff for us. So you'll start to use StatCrunch more and more. If you're intimidated by it right now, just don't be. It's not nearly as intimidating as it seems. Watch a couple videos on YouTube of people doing the things you're trying to do. Like if the whole video explained on YouTube is like 3 minutes, then that must mean that it's a pretty simple thing to do. It's just that right now you're all new at StatCrunch, and so you're not comfortable with it yet, but you will get comfortable with it. Where are we? Let's go back to our modules here. And then remember, so this is right. This is I couldn't remember if it was this class or the other one. I suspect it's because I kind of messed up. I had accidentally had chapter 4, the due dates, set earlier than they were supposed to be, so I had to change them. But what I didn't want to do is come back and move these closer so that you had less time to do this assignment. But what you don't want to do is look at this and go, okay, I need to get this stuff by the 10th, but then I have 2 weeks to get this chapter done and then wait on it. Because what's going to happen if you look, you have 3 chapters due at the end of October, right? So if you wait until almost the end to do this chapter and then you go, wait, I'm supposed to get the whole chapter done by tomorrow and then I'm supposed to get a whole chapter done the next day? No, you got 2 weeks to be working on all of those chapters. So procrastination is going to be your enemy in that case. Don't wait around to move into chapter 3. Chapter 3 is actually not too bad. Most people do pretty well with it as long as you got to pay attention to some details, but once you get those straight, you're good. Chapter 4, I actually think, is probably one of the most interesting chapters in the book, I find. The other stuff can be really helpful, but it's almost like magic box. You tell StatCrunch to calculate a hypothesis test for you, and then it magically comes back with numbers. Whereas with this chapter 4 stuff, you really can kind of go along and understand what it's doing. I think it's really interesting. And then probability, people kind of have trouble with probability sometimes. So make sure you leave yourself enough time to do this last chapter. So you have 3 chapters due at the end of October. Don't wait to start those chapters. You want to do them now, okay? So so don't wait, right? Once you get this chapter 10, this October 10th, you got this stuff turned in, just start chapter 3. Even though I haven't talked about these yet, we'll talk about them next time. Most of you, I'm sure, could do a lot of the problems in these sections before I even talk about them. Okay, so a few details you got to look out for, but overall pretty good. So that's where we're at. I will probably send out an announcement later today. So let's see if I had any announcements in this class. Not yet. I will probably send out an announcement later today when I get that survey up so that a bunch of you can get in and take it, right? Please don't wait till Monday, because when it comes to this survey, the more people are procrastinating, the longer it's going to take us for me to release the data to you, the less time you have to work on your project. Which means, and I don't mean like less total time, but like the more spread out that you can work on the project, first of all, your outcomes are going to be better, and it's just less stressful, right? If you're doing the work at the end of each chapter that we cover, that's way better than trying to remember 2 months from now and go, wait, how did R values work with correlation? I kind of forget. And then you're trying to do the work then. If you do it after each chapter, it's going to be easier for you. Okay. So just kind of look out for that. Some of you have this set up where it emails you when an announcement is posted. I don't know what the default is because I don't have a student account. I have a teacher account. So I'm the one who makes the announcements. But then you'll see that. Go in, try to take the survey, and then I'll get that stuff released to you. Okay? So anybody who wants to ask me questions. Zoom is working. I know I had some troubles with Zoom last week. I found the setting. right? It was what I thought it was. There was an update. They changed one of my settings. And Zoom, you'd think Zoom is pretty simple, right? There's like hundreds of settings. So I had to go in and find the one that flipped. So it was making it so that when I open a meeting in Zoom, it wasn't using my personal meeting. It was using like a generic one that I would have to send a link out for. So I got that fixed. So Zoom's working. Anybody who wants to talk to me about anything, I know there's still 1 or 2 students that are having trouble setting up the homework. Come talk to me in Zoom. I'll help you with that. If you're having trouble figuring out StatCrunch or you don't understand what's going on, come talk to me in Zoom, and I'm going to help you out with that. Okay, I'm going to explain it for you. So otherwise, I'm closing down the YouTube stream, and I will see everyone, what did I say, Wednesday? Guess I'll see everyone next week. Please take the survey. Okay, bye.